Okay, again, I am Prophetess Sade Gilmore. This is part 2 of The Divorce Didn't Stop Me. And as I left off in part 1 saying how sometimes we take on things, we take on burdens that the Lord never told us to take up on. Sometimes we create things the Lord never wanted to be created. And to shine even more light on what I was saying when I was talking about this, I shared how, yes, my ex was an assignment from God. Yes, he was. And I know that for a fact. But the Lord never intended for us to walk through a door of marriage. I illegally created that door. You will have to go back and watch part 1 to understand why I just said that if you don't get it. Because I got to get this part out, part 2. So let's go on. The Lord called me from that relationship last year. Matter of fact, I take that back because this is a new year. The Lord called me away from that relationship when it was just a relationship, not marriage. 2022. October, he told me to let it go. I didn't have the script to leave it alone and let it go. Fast forward, December. Once he revealed he cheated on me, I chose to leave it alone. The Lord had gave me strength. The strength was built up enough to walk away. During that time, I was pregnant with my firstborn son. Fast forward to March, I give birth to my son. Feelings and emotions began to come back. Now, during that time, there was another man on the table. And this man was the one that the Lord had told me is for me to marry. This is the one he had for me. And just like any relationship, no relationship is perfect. The Lord allowed that relationship with my kingdom spouse that I was sharing at that time to be tested. To where I didn't want to be obedient and wait. I didn't want to wait for the Lord to restore that marriage, that relationship with my kingdom spouse. And so once I had the baby, one moment. Once I gave birth to my son in March, I decided to go back to the familiar thing, the thing that's comfortable, the thing that feels good, the thing I ain't got to wrestle with to, how can I say, the thing that's already available. And so I went back to the point of, I created a door of marriage illegally in June of 2023, and we walked through that door. And although it was illegal spiritually, because the Lord never intended for Ishmael to be created, come on somebody, one moment. I created Ishmael. Come on, Abraham. See, we like to look at Sarah, but we got to look at ourselves, Abraham, because in this situation, Sarah represents God. The Lord told me, it's your choice. Although he had spoke a promise to me that I would get married, although he told me this is my way right here, he still came to me and said that day in the hospital, it's your choice. And I chose to go with my choice. Abraham, I chose to go and lay and try to get it my way. The same thing that Abraham did. He had a spoken promise from the Lord. And instead of him waiting, continuing to wait for it to come to pass, he chose to lay and get it his way. creating Ishmael. Instead of waiting for the promise of Isaac to come to pass, we went and created Ishmael. Talking about Abraham, not a child, literally. I said we because I was Abraham. And as I just said, Sarah represents God in this situation. But let's go on. Because just as Abraham had to walk away from Ishmael, just as God commanded and called Abraham from that situation, God too called me away from my illegal situation. And I had to walk away from that Ishmael that I created. Did I want to let it go? I'm going to say it like this. It was a very familiar place for me. It was a comfortable place. It was a place of knowing. I know what to expect. I know this. I know that. But God had commanded me to let it go. And I had to do just that. And let me go ahead and say this, because not too long after I went through that illegal door of marriage with my ex, the Lord gave me a word, and it's still on TikTok to this day, last year. And he told me, he said that relationship had to fail because you belong to someone else. I had to walk away from Ishmael. Ishmael had to go because Isaac was the promise. It's the promise. But let's go on. Because as I got written down, God already knows what we would do before we do it. That illegal situation didn't catch God by surprise. Me being illegally married to my sperm donor, to my ex, didn't surprise God. But I had to let it go and walk away from the marriage. And as I shared in part 1, I'm going to share in this part 2. Sometimes the Lord put people into our lives for one thing, but we go and create them into another thing. The promise was Isaac and was never going to be Ishmael. Ishmael is the illegal situation. So, said all that to say this because the Lord wanted me to talk about it. The divorce didn't stop me. The divorce didn't stop me. And if it is something illegal spiritually, because the Lord never created, he never intended for Ishmael to be created. So Abraham, because we like to blame Sarah, but as I said, Sarah represents God in this situation. Because yes, it is your choice. But you have already been given a spoken word of something to come or over a certain situation. But instead of you waiting for the Lord to perform it, his word, instead of you waiting on the promise of Isaac, you have went and created an Ishmael situation. And if that is you, then I will encourage you by the Lord to walk away and let it go, Abraham. Send Ishmael on his way. Because the promise will never come through Ishmael. Ishmael will never be or receive the blessing that God has for you through Isaac. So I will encourage you to let it go. Let it go today and walk away. Even if it is literally for you a divorce. Let it go. Or it could just be y'all didn't get married. A regular relationship.